Hey, I'm Brett McLaughlin, and I am an editor here at O'Reilly, and I am sitting next to Garth Braithwaite. And Garth has kind of a truckload of things here. You're the Director of User Experience at Rain,
right,
which is a digital agency.
Right.
You're the co-author of the Flex Cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
You're the host of RIA Radio's podcast. I mean, what do you not do?
I don't dance. We're good. We'll leave it at author and host.
Fortunately, we aren't doing any dancing today. We're talking about events and Flex, which I know is. I mean, this is behavior, right? So this is the point where we kind of move from just display, wireframing, and actually talk about behavior.
Right. Events are the foundation for our interaction that we're going to have with the user as well. So, when somebody clicks, we want things to happen, and events make that all happen.
And Flex defines all the events, or only certain things that they define, and we can add some? How does the Flex define versus what we can do work out?
So Flex gets us part of the way there. You know,
okay.
They got a good foundation for us, as any good framework should. They got the stubs. They started out for us. But when we want to create our own things, we gotta go a little bit further than what they provide. So.
And where does this fall on the spectrum? Because I know a lot of people that are getting into Flex want to kind of start out with the easier stuff, but it seems like the framework's pretty complex. How do events fit in that?
It's foundational. So whether it's easy or not,
okay,
you're going to hit a wall at some point and say, okay, now how do I make this work?
Okay.
And if you don't understand how events fit into the whole scheme,
okay,
you're going to stop at that wall.
And so we're going to look at, I suppose, some simple events, some custom events like you mentioned, and how to wire all this together?
Yeah, and we're going to really get a fine look at what events are doing, so we'll understand how the process works.
Great, let's take a look. So I know we're looking at behavior and events specifically. Events are on the client side, right? So I know that there are other videos where we've talked about integrating with server-side components.
Right.
But events are all sitting, I guess, within the application?
Right. So when we talk about events in terms of Flex 4 or even just an action script, events are ways for communication to happen within our application.
Okay.
So if I click a button here,
mm-hmm.
That component says, hey, I've been clicked.
Okay.
So that dispatching or that propagating of that communication, that's the event that's doing that.
Okay. And then you can talk to a server from an event, but that then is a sort of different thing.
Right. And so if you're coming from a server-side world, event-driven client-side applications are
mm-hmm.
different.
Okay.
Server-side, you really only have things that are triggered when someone makes a request.
Right.
Or that's pretty much it. I mean, sending data or receiving data, but even those two things are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
So not a whole lot of events going on there, but in Flex on the client side, we've got a whole lot of communication happening. We've got a whole lot of interaction happening from the user.
Right.
Every time they scroll, every time they click, every time they go to something else, it's all events happening.
Okay,
there.
And then we can respond to that with custom code.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Now I know we've got an application that if you followed along on the creating apps with Spark components and then skinning Flex apps and then integrating services, you could follow those sequentially to get to, I guess, the code we have available for download.
Right.
And that's our starting point. So what are we building based on that?
Right. So this is the end point that will be at the end of all this. But there's not a whole lot to actually see. It's not like the skinning video where it looked drastically different by
mm-hmm.
the time we were done. This is more about the interaction.
Okay.
So in the skinning video, we actually showed how to create this custom component that
mm-hmm.
can open and close. I've added a couple buttons to it since then.
Okay.
But when you click on this play button, it actually communicates to the application that it needs to start playing the audio.
Okay.
And then it also closes that.
Okay.
So those are events that are making that happen. And then also here on the hosts,
mm-hmm.
When I click on one of these hosts, it shows us the details. And
again, it opens up some information about them.
That's right. And to close it again, those are all events that are causing those interactions to happen.
Okay.
And then finally, with our contact form, we've taken it a step further here, and we've actually made it so that we worked on it with integrating services. So we actually talked about how to send contact information. But here, I'm just going to go ahead and enter in the required data. Oh.
And we've got validation on here from when we figured out how to send this to the server in the first place.
Right. So I have to fill out a message and an email address or else it won't send it.
Okay.
But now it sends it.
Thank you, but our princess. Okay, nice.
Right.
Super Mario reference there, sure.
8-bit. So now it doesn't just send the contact, it responds, and the user can see that response. And then they do have the option to actually send another message.
Okay.
And what the user doesn't see, and what we're going to look at in this case, is we're actually going to see how to communicate between the different views, because it's not all happening. Not all the logic is here in the contact view.
Okay.
So that is a slight change that we're going to look at, different from what we did in the integrating services.
Okay. And so what are we doing first?
First, we're going to take a look at just a simple interaction. It's actually going to be here on the player. And it's going to be this interaction of hitting play and having the application respond to that.
Cool.